Finally, after 9 months of teasing a new Animal Crossing for the Switch way back in like September of 2018, we now finally have a full-fledged trailer as well as some HD gameplay for the new Animal Crossing game, New Horizons. Though it's no longer a 2019 release, rather a 2021 instead. We've already waited 9 months, I'm sure we can handle another. And since we're still in the peak of E3, I've been releasing analyses for each major Nintendo trailer as fast as I can, and it's time to finally settle our footing into Animal Crossing as well. The way this video is going to work is we'll be breaking down any details we can find from the new trailer, including pretty much everything new to the series and missable details, as well as putting in our own speculative ideas of how some things could apply to the gameplay of the rest of the game. Kind of filling in the gaps, if you will. We'll also be referring to the Treehouse live footage as we go along because more content is always good. Sound good? Alrighty then, let's begin. So right off the bat, we're already teased on visuals since we've just got a black screen to go off of. We also have, for one of the very first times, an actual human being talking with her actual voice. The chances of this actually being in the game are very, very low and are simply for the trailer. However, it does beg the question of how the game actually starts. Judging by the context, it's clear that transportation to this game will take place through an airplane and is part of a getaway package owned by Nook Inc. Throughout all previous Animal Crossing games, be it through buses, taxis, or boat, Cap'n has always been our chauffeur to a new area, apart from the monkey on the train in New Leaf. And though we've never ridden an airplane before, there's always a chance that Cap'n will be seen once again as an official pilot. Or maybe that one monkey is really going to be going places. In fact, on the map of the Treehouse live footage, we can actually see a plane icon, not a boat one, curiously. So if there's no boat for Cap'n, a plane will have to do. Also, one final thing to mention from literally a black screen. Does the mention of a getaway package actually mean anything? Is the protagonist of this game just an unknown human much like every other game, or does this protagonist actually have kind of a history? Are they supposed to be the same mayor from New Leaf, literally wanting to get away from it all and start anew, and slowly having their old villagers come visit and join? Or is it very much just they were unknown in some place, didn't like it, and decided to restart on an island instead? It's more likely the first, and the last one I just mentioned, but it's something to think about. Beautiful. I love this opener, and though there's really not too much to see, do note the hair of our protagonist here. Apparently, this isn't the usual default female hair choice. I wouldn't really know, I always play as the male, but perhaps for this game, it is the default. It's also just as likely that this is a fully prepared character, though the same hairstyle also appears for Aya in the Treehouse footage. So there's always a chance that the villager, or I guess islander design you choose at the start of the game has more variety, or at least a fresh new approach. Potentially. Also, we can see the land is lifted to the right. This is normal in all other Animal Crossing games, but we specifically see in this game that the beach can flow smoothly into land. Clearly, both are an option within New Horizons. This shot doesn't tell us too much, but there are two faint islands off on the horizon. We'll talk more on that in a little bit. Here we see the islander's tent, up front and center, showing that at the start of the game, this is how your house will begin. It can also be placed practically anywhere on the island, including the beach itself, as seen in the Treehouse footage if that's more your style. Though thankfully we are not subjected to only a tent, as it can be upgraded along the way much like normal. Also, we see in the corner that trees can now drop new items, craftable materials. So far what we've seen is that when striking a tree with an axe, or at least a flimsy axe, wields two types of wood. Wood, as it's just called, and hardwood. These are used to build other items, which I'll go into later when we see it properly in the trailer, but I think it might also be worth pointing out here that there's already a dropped item, the tree branch, laying next to the tree this early in the game. So perhaps even though an axe will provoke a tree to drop wood, occasionally tree branches will just naturally drop from nearby trees without the need of an axe. We also know that you can force at least 3 pieces of wood from each individual tree with a flimsy axe. Maybe there'll be more and different types of wood with other types of axes. Though we also see that just shaking a tree drops tree branches, so it could also be that that is an extra thing you can do if you haven't got an axe. Perhaps with different types of axes, we could get more variety of wood as well. I imagine it's mostly wood, hardwood, and softwood, but maybe we can also get specific tree types like oak wood, beech wood, pine wood, and palm wood. We already see pine trees and palm trees, so maybe it lines up. I imagine the other types of trees could also garner something slightly different if they appear. Also, yes, when you start, the island is deserted, mostly. You'll start with no other islanders, and they slowly populate your place as you build it up. Though going back to the Treehouse live footage, you'll probably have the company of Tom Nook and Timmy and Tommy. Next, we see the Resident Services building. In this little tent resides Tom Nook and one of the Nooklings. It's here that you will be able to use Tom Nook's workbench to craft your own items out of the materials you collect. Other things you can do is buy and sell items from the Nookling Timmy, and presumably pay off your debts to Tom Nook using the machine in the corner. I assume this is an ATM, as this is Tom Nook's place, but it hasn't officially been noted yet on the wikis or any other analyses videos. Others have suggested that maybe it's a catalog machine rather than an ATM. Maybe it's a cross of the two, kind of having a multifunctional purpose. There's also some kind of mystery box in the other corner. I don't quite know what it could be for. Maybe a lottery item you can pay bells to collect? But do tell me your thoughts on what it could be, because I don't think it's immediately clear, even with the logos of books and umbrellas. Is it just that's an option that might be there randomly on a day? We've also heard that this building can be upgraded in the future, but to what extent we do not know. And finally, a very minor detail that could be really cool is Tom Nook's decorative idea of hanging up one of his jackets. This could actually foreshadow his outfit in the colder, more wintry seasons, where he'll swap his airy button-up shirt for something more practical. Nice. In the trailer, the islander builds a flimsy axe, built by combining a stone with, I think, 5 tree branches. Other items you can craft include tools like the shovel, net, fishing rod, watering can, and pole vault that we'll see later on, as well as furniture like fireplaces and wooden benches. And if you don't know the materials, Timmy will offer some items in his shop. We can also see, based by the logos at the top, that there's all sorts of other categories of things you can craft, including wallpaper, which I guess would be understandable, but somehow that one surprised me. Using the flimsy axe on a tree, we see it doesn't work to break down the tree. Perhaps it has been completely abolished and replaced with the new way to uproot trees, or maybe it's because it's just a flimsy axe and a stronger one has more of a kick. Next, we see the flimsy axe being used on rocks, not a shovel for some reason. Now dropping a stone, a piece of clay, and an iron nugget, all that can be sold to Timmy. And hey, you can place furniture outside now! I particularly like how the player is role-playing into their character by literally having them take off their shoes on the beach. They've also placed this apple fruit juice that could be another craftable decorative piece. Either way, the entire island is yours to customize. This is likely replacing the mayor role entirely, as you're no longer working for public works projects and simply crafting it yourself. There's not even a town hall on this island yet, which begs the question, where is Isabelle these days? This time-lapse is just beautiful, and is more so showing how the gameplay works more than anything else. It's all about looking after your own little place on this island and working peacefully on whatever projects you want. We do actually see a new type of wood at the beginning, which I'm going to guess and say that it's softwood, the opposite of hardwood. I also really like the giant leaf umbrella for that brief rainy section. I know it's already existing, but I love it. Now, I originally thought that the rain in this segment caused the bucket and barrel at the back to fill up with water. But it turns out they're always filled anyway. But I wonder, if you could place an empty one, would it fill with rain? And if it did, what kind of things could you do with it? Perhaps it could be used for other tool mechanics. Well, we already have a watering can that never really seems to need refilling, but maybe it could do something else. Maybe a bucket of water can speed up the watering process by splashing it on a large field of flowers. Can you contain a fish in a portable body of water? Can food be cooked by combining it with boiling water above a fire? Or maybe you can collect and donate water to some kind of system, like filling up a well, or creating a man-made waterfall or a fountain, making a pathway of water or a water slide. Or maybe some islander would just ask you for a bucket of water. I don't know. It was just a speculative thought of mine that I had at one point. Regardless, there is a mini story going on here. The player cleans up the area, plants some saplings in a tree, and lays out some clothing, hides from the rain and saves her clothes too, and settles with the fire at night. Here's the new vaulting pole item, allowing players to leap across rivers. And something to note here is that this may be a necessary item. After all, if this is a deserted island, then there are no bridges to walk across yet. Surely you can build some yourself later on, but before then, you will need this item to physically access certain parts of your island. In the Treehouse footage map, there's 3 distinct sections separated by the river, so it must be a must for that layout. I also think it'd be quite cool to see other islanders doing this in the background. Few new things here. Obviously, it's autumn, first things first, but you can also now uproot entire trees using just the shovel, and a wooden one at that. Surprising. Clearly, this is so you can direct exactly where the trees go on the island. And also, the villager in the background, Olivia, is sitting down, something we haven't seen other characters doing without a chair before this point. Somehow it looks more peaceful and relaxing than ever. And she has some long sleeves for the first time in an Animal Crossing game, as does all the future animals we see. Natural waterfalls also return, and we also see a mushroom droppable item, as well as sections of land on different height levels. Just to clear up the notion that no, these islands aren't always going to be entirely flat. These will likely be randomly generated from the start of the game, though it would also be cool if there was some kind of fancy feature that allowed you to affect the terrain of the island to change the height level yourself for whatever parts you wanted. Moving through the seasons again, we come to winter, and we see a few more villagers have come to join the player with Freya and Eunice. The nearby trees are all pine trees, potentially dropping new wood, and the cabin in the back is an actual cabin, not a simple tent. Plus, it's entirely made out of wood, suggesting it could possibly be a giant craftable project. Though it begs the question, do the other villagers naturally come with their house designs, or do they come to you to request such an upgrade? Or maybe you crafting the house first is what beckons the animals to then set up residence in them. Whatever the options, you can now decorate the front door a little bit too. The player is rolling out a snowball to create a big snowman, and we also see a lone tree stump. Perhaps this has just formed naturally, but may also suggest that stronger axes can destroy trees the archaic way. Or someone just plonked it down for some reason. And now we're indoors with another animal villager, Fuchsia, again having quite the nice full-on house. Do note that her windows have blinds in them, harkening perhaps more closely to Happy Home Designer, where minor details on things such as the windows could be customized as well, and hopefully can be applied to your windows too. She also has her own workbench in her room, which the player also obtains in the very next clip. Perhaps this is just a craftable item that you can place for more convenience than in Nook's service shop, or maybe having your own allows you to build a different library of stuff. Maybe it has more housing things to craft. Or it's just the style to have that around or something. We also see Fuchsia in a full dress this time, an Animal Crossing first. And next, the narrative continues. The house has become a brick and wood house with that same barrel to the right, and the flowers and tree have begun to grow, though the flowers aren't in full bloom yet. The bench has been moved and more furniture has been added to the outside, and the player is using a new tool, some kind of cement path builder. Beforehand, this was just done through QR code patterns, so this is a giant step up. The way it works is you fill in one square unit at a time, though also have the option to round the edges. This could be done manually, or maybe it naturally happens when placing a pathway unit near a building or when you reach the beach sand. And I'm loving the builder's outfit this islander is going with. Going into spring, we now see her living space has bloomed. Literally, her flowers are now fully grown and her path is fully decked out. She also has some decorations of her own, and we can see the islander actually being able to pluck flowers without fully destroying them. Presumably, now that they've been taken, they can continue the bloom and they won't have completely disappeared. And for the final clip, we see her adventure further to the right, as more furniture becomes apparent and another house appears, which by the way has its own kind of smooth clay design with an extension to the left showing more customization in upgrades as well as what materials you use to build the houses. We learn that multiple other players can join you on a single island, each with their own house and living experiences. For new things, we see one player with a braided hairstyle and a backpack. Our protagonist has a purse or a handbag. There's more variety in skin tones to choose from, and as a mini reference, we see the classic default Animal Crossing characters, including the red one-shirt kid, who may have been relaxing earlier due to his prominence in Smash. Actually, all of these characters have mini personalities of their own. It's all roleplay, but this nerdy guy at the front seems to have a little addiction to his phone, whipping it out here and even just standing at the beach. We know this to be the Nook Phone because of course it is. Giving several services including taking photos, showing the map, displaying crafting recipes, and gaining Nook Miles, which are basically currency rewards for doing minor achievements. Though we don't know where we can use them yet. And you can call on another player, or at least a couch player or three, to spawn to assist you in some co-op play. Judging by the treehouse footage, it looks like there's room for more apps and services for the player, but what ideas can you see here? Along with a crafting catalogue, I can see a catalogue of what you have made. There can be a list of bugs, fish, and fossils found, assuming they all return. Maybe you can have notes on each villager, including their personality and what coffee brand they like, and maybe there's even a weather forecast, letting you know in advance what the weather will be like at what hour or the next day. There's a lot of room for more here, so I'd love to hear your suggestions. And back to that final scene, we once again see several distant islands off on the horizon. And it makes me think, overall, this game is clearly taking inspiration from previous titles. We've got a bit of Pocket Camp, there's a little bit of home designer customization, and New Leaf is in there too. So I think what comes naturally next is a little piece from Let's Go to the City, or City Folk, meaning that there could be a separate commercial island which the player can access via the plane shown on the minimap. After all, that would fill in a handful of questions. Where is Isabelle? She's assisting the commercial island in the distance, or helping with the happy home business alongside Digby. Where's all the other iconic cast, including those who bring other services like clothing, postage and museums? They're all elsewhere, obviously. And what is there to do with the Nook Miles currency? Well, it sounds to me like it fits pretty nicely to the theme of traveling via airplane. Whether you use Nook Miles to actually use the plane, and the more you have, the further you can reach to certain islands, forcing you to choose your off-island adventures wisely, or the shops and services on the commercial island only accept mileage rather than bells, which sounds a tad less likely to me, but we'll see. Or perhaps maybe it's more for a fun minigame kind of currency that's only usable on Tour Timer Island or something like that. Either way, I feel this is the biggest answer to New Horizons' largest hole of questions. Everyone's missing because they're all on their own island somewhere, or multiple separate ones. So as a final thing, there's just a few minor details to mention thanks to more of that Treehouse Live footage that aren't really worth mentioning, but I'll put it all in at the end anyway. You can now change the settings of your island to specify the northern or southern hemisphere, making sure the seasons line up correctly with your real life home. Animals can hold more variety of items, or at least wood, but presumably other crafting drops as well. Clams can be used as bait when fishing, and craftable items can stack. And after all of that, it seems pretty clear that this is the most customizable Animal Crossing yet, and potentially one of the most ambitious as well. Plus, that 8-player online mode looks like it could be a real lot of fun. And just remember, it's only 9 months away. We are on the cusp of the halfway mark since it was announced. Until then, let me know. Were there details that you saw that I missed, and what other speculative points could you see coming to fruition? Do you think the other islands are relevant? Has Isabelle been left behind in Smash? And do you like what you see with all this craftable theming? Whatever your thoughts, I would love to hear your discussions down below. Though E3 week is slowly coming to a close, do be sure to check out my previous work on Luigi's Mansion 3 and the Breath of the Wild sequel, as well as the Cadence of Hyrule review video coming out next. I'll also likely be streaming it at some point, so check out my Twitter for other updates. As for now, my name's been Daz, you didn't really care, and I'll see you in a bit.